Hi, everybody. It's Brent Wees from Toronto, Canada. I'm the founder of idea.meet.plan. And that I am a strategist, a longtime strategist, about 20 years in the marketplace. My background is quite varied. I started as a programmer, as a web designer, a web developer, went to school for that, went back to school for that around 25 years ago, just after the dot-com bust of all things. Went back to school and then started my own different collectives for design and development. Built that through and became a partner at a digital advertising agency by the name of Dashboard. And during our time at Dashboard, we built out great digital campaigns for a lot of tier one global brands and entities, from companies like Unilever, ING Direct, Axe Body Spray. We worked with Google, we worked with Microsoft, we worked with lots of different packaged goods, to financial, to entertainment, to sport, and automotive, Toyota, Nissan, Toyota Dealers Association. So during our time as a digital advertising agency, our focus was to always really push the boundaries of what we could do in market and how we could leverage that out to a user. The interesting thing about, as we built our agency and started to work, we started to work more and more with automotive dealers. And like I said, as we did that, we started working with the Toyota Dealer Association here in the province of Ontario in Canada. And why that's a compelling backstory is because of this, because we had a group of dealers, 85 stores, 85 dealers that were brand new to online strategy, online campaigning, and the like. And as we brought this group of dealers into the digital age, so to speak, with websites, pay-per-click campaigns and strategies, working with the likes of Google, eventually then to Facebook later on, we brought them through a lot of things, and sometimes they were the first in market to try things with Google as a platform in regards to retargeting tags and different ways to track and look at customer engagement. We were also one of the first agencies to work with Facebook's development suite when they were in the early days of their entire environment. We worked with great teams from Microsoft around the world, building different things. So while we collaborated with some of the big parties in the digital space, a lot of that time though also was spent helping the dealers not just understand what all these new bells and whistles were, what all this new technology was. Our responsibility to them was also to help them just understand the basics of what these things were, what a retargeting tag meant if you were looking at a website user, what a responsive design website means, what gamification means, or data mining. So all of these things that are somewhat commonplace now, there was a time when we spent a large amount of our time helping dealers just understand the nuances and the new terms that were coming out. And also, as we built strategies around some of these things, we helped them see how they could do that digitally, because they actually understood how to do it from an analog sense. But now they were doing things a lot more quickly, doing more online, doing more on their on devices, and as devices rose in our culture. And now we're at this point, this point in our history where, the dealer bodies across North America and in Europe are looking at their entire digital strategy different. There's been a lot of time for them to focus in on why they need to do it and the importance of it. It's obvious our consumer is very much a connected consumer. They're on many devices. We're almost too connected. And even though we're going through this massive pandemic, we still have more connectivity than we ever have. And that just grows every day, and it's faster and it's quicker. But year over year, there's always more things and more nuances to the digital strategy that dealers have to wrap their heads around. Right now, for most of us, it is the best way to put it. Right now, the best thing that dealers are trying to focus on for their business some of the best strategies are around digital retailing or e-commerce. How do we help dealerships, and how do the dealerships help consumers do more transactions and business online, thoroughly online, with little touch at the live site of the dealership. Now, there's always going to be that touch. There's always going to be a need for service. There's always going to be a need for test drives and other things. But right now, it's a perfect example of when this has happened. It's changed how dealers will do business. Therefore, they have to look at the technologies that maybe were a little bit bleeding edge just a little while ago. Only as far back as NADA this year, back in February. There was a lot of technology that dealers were really adopting that quickly because it was a lot to take in. And as we all know, dealers and dealerships are busy places, and they're places where it's sometimes really difficult to just instill good, simple process. And with every new piece of software and with every layer you add on top of your foundation of doing business, it's one more piece of process that has to be adopted by people, regardless of department. It's just more and more asks of people that in our vertical in automotive aren't necessarily used to getting more thrown at them, because they are single-minded in nature. Sell cars, fix cars, order parts for those cars, help customers figure out different financing options for those cars. It's something that the more we add to this group, historically the group hasn't been that responsive to taking on more. So as an industry, we do suffer from a lack of adoption with our technology. We have with CRM technology for years now. In multiple ways, I've seen dealers either have great adoption on the technology they have to use, or it's very, very hard for dealers to get people on board. And what happens over time, be it months or just a few years, they get off on a great footing, and then it all falls apart. They leave technology, they drop different subscriptions. It's not necessarily because the technology isn't working, and sometimes it is, right? Sometimes the technology starts to fall apart because maybe that vendor isn't building it out the right way, so it's evolving with the dealer's business. However, more often than not, it's more a human issue where we aren't going through a thorough process of adoption. And that's a different thing, like the process of adoption, just taking things on, taking ownership of them and being honest about them and accountable for them. So the reason why I wanted to take you through this session about building the blocks for marketing success is, like in Vegas, for those who were in Las Vegas and at my talk, I was talking about the human aspects of the business, not the digital aspects of the business. And that's what these building blocks are as well. They are about planning. They are about putting what's in your head on paper. It's about engaging your team as a group to come up with great ideas. And it's about that team working cohesively in order to get campaigns into market the right way, drive different promotions at the dealership to the right groups of people. Maybe it's a way of using the same steps to assess a piece of software that may help you go to market better or just run the business better. Again, these building blocks for marketing success, they can be applied to other things, not just marketing, but I will present it today in a way that will show you how that works. And although I'm setting it up and it sounds like a very, very large, big thing to tackle, you know, it's really not. It's just 3 steps. It only has 3 steps. The lesson is 3 steps, and that's really great, because I don't want this to be overarching and something that's tough to do. I want this for us to embrace it, see how simple it is, and understand the kind of work that we have to put into it as a group, and then build from there. So this is only 3 steps, and I'll tell you what those 3 steps are. The first step is called the brief. And what a brief is, well, I'll get to that in a second. I want to give you the steps. I don't want to jump ahead, but here are the steps. The first one is the brief. The second step is brainstorming, coming up with ideas, just thinking about great things to do in market. Brainstorming is a lot of fun. This is all a lot of fun to me, and I think you guys will enjoy it too, but brainstorming is great. It can be a lot of fun for a group to do. And then finally, the last step is roles and responsibilities. So during the part of this session, I'm going to take you through all this, and I'm going to help you understand just how to build this out in a way that is easy to execute, easy to schedule and plan, and then it's just a matter of being accountable to the work once you have gone through these 3 steps. The real goal is to see how well you've executed a single plan in market or a single plan of assessment of software, or it's a hiring assessment. It could be a number of things with these 3 steps, but I'm going to take this through with you all if we look at it as a marketing exercise. So let's say we're going to do it based on something we want to solve with new car inventory, and I'll get to that in a second. So why is this so simple? Why is it just 3 steps? I think in our industry, we often rush to go to market. People in management will come in, they will talk very quickly about needing something that we have to get into market on behalf of the dealer. And that's a very daunting thing for a lot of people, because in our busy states at the dealership, when someone comes in and says, we need a used car sale, or we need a new vehicle launch event, we need a winter tire promotion, oftentimes it is instructed by a single person to either a team or an individual that needs to then go out, figure out how they're going to do it on behalf of the dealership, and then execute it. Now, if you think about that, that's a very simple ask. Just need a winter tire promotion. But often that's all that's asked for. So you are already setting up your team with a lot of extra questions about the context of it and the timing and the different seasonality. And so the reason why I set this up the way I do, the reason why I talk about these 3 steps is briefing, brainstorming, and roles and responsibilities are, it makes every ask an exercise in thinking about it just a little bit more, just taking a pause to think about what we're asking for, why we need it, what we can do with it, and then who's going to help us get it out the door. That sort of encapsulates all 3 steps. And it's a very, very simple step, but the reason why I do this is we rush. This is an industry where we rush to get technology implemented that we don't understand. We start building creative content or market things out we push things out into market because our manufacturers require us to in a very timely manner, but we're not stopping and thinking about whether or not we're really touching the right customers. So let's jump in. The first step that I told you about was the brief. And what I mean by a brief is not the briefs you wear as underwear. It is a document, a marketing brief or a strategic brief. And the reality of that is it's a simple series of questions, a document, like a Word document, a Google Doc, that is just a series of questions. Any effective marketing or effective strategic plan always starts with this, always starts with a brief, and it helps streamline your process. It helps paint a clearer picture of the marketing objectives and goals. So if you are the one that is going out to a department or your marketing team or an external agency and asking for help with something, I need to do this in market, by bringing them through a brief, you are making very clear what your objectives are, some insight that you've heard, some different things that you're pulling in, and just giving that external or internal team a little bit of extra information. You're walking them through what's in your mind. The great thing about these briefs, though, is they do identify opportunities that may not have been thought of, but they also identify problems that also may not be flagged. So briefs are great because they also help just us establish measurements for success, regardless of what you're using it for. Like I said, I'm going to take you through a briefing document, a brainstorm, and roles and responsibilities based on an inventory problem. But you can use a brief to hand to a software vendor, right? This is what we're trying to solve. Really, a briefing document is setting up something that you want to solve or evolve or improve at your dealership. Okay. And I'm going to take you through a series of questions about the brief. I'll show you just an example of what I draft up and I keep in a Google Doc, and I repurpose it all the time. I'll show you a physical document of it, but while I'm presenting this to you, write these questions down. And as you see with my slides, I've taken them through Google Translate as best I could, because I wanted to give you, a translation of these questions. I will state them. I'll say them out loud in English, so that way they're translated a little bit better. So my apologies if some of the translations are a little off, but I think most of us will get the idea. And what I will do is I will give the show my briefing template, and then they can translate it properly. So you have all of these questions in Russian and understandable, because I even have problems with English on a good day. So let's jump into the brief. Okay. The very first question on my brief is, what problem are we solving? This is very simple. It's what pain points. The way to think about this is, and again, this isn't a long answer when you first jump into this. So what problem are we solving? What are the pain points for a consumer that may be happening in market? Something you see going, hey, there's something that we notice that a lot of dealerships aren't doing for customers, and we could do a better job of that. I've got an idea around something I'm seeing that where we can make something better for a consumer. What can we remove for them? But maybe there's something also happening inside the dealership that may not necessarily be consumer based. It may be dealership based. And in this case, let's say that number one problem we're solving is we have an excess of inventory on the, let's just say for the purpose of this exercise, we have we have an overage of inventory on our Toyota Corollas. So the Toyota Corolla at my dealership, I've got probably 25 too many on my lot right now, right? Because of this pandemic, let's put it in the pandemic sort of scenario. Because of the pandemic, I've got a backlog of inventory. So I need to figure out a way. My problem that I'm solving is I need to figure out a way to move more of my backlog new vehicle inventory off the lot. That's my problem, right? Simple answer to a simple question. Don't overthink this, but always make it granular though of one thing. The problem is not we need better culture in the dealership. That's a very big statement that could involve a lot of things. Try to always get an answer to this first question of what problem we're solving. Try to bring that into a very granular answer of one simple thing, because the simpler you make this on early attempts, I believe the more success you'll have. Okay, what problem are we solving? Question number two, then on the brief, and again, I will show you the document of this. What's the consumer insight? Or for this matter, what's the insight in general? What is the in-market insight? So what are you hearing from consumers based on the different kinds of people that shop at your dealership or do business with you? What sorts of things are you hearing from them about, the current state of the market, their aptitude for buying or not buying right now? What are you seeing in the press or in the media about the state of the market? What are the banks doing in terms of interest rates? So what is that consumer or market insight? So your problem again is I've got too much inventory, and the consumer insight is maybe those things of going, well, no one's really buying, the market is a little slow right now because of the health crisis, or remove the health crisis. It could be, interest rates are really high right now. We are seeing that a lot of people are holding on to certain models a little longer, not all models, but there's all sorts of little pieces with the consumer or the in-market insight that you want to think about, because all of those little bullet points are valuable to the people that then have to come up with the ideas and the execution to roll this out. Just saying we have too much inventory doesn't give them enough ammo. They need more insights, and they may hear stuff from salespeople. They may hear things from the finance department, the people that are working the leasing and financing deals. There's all sorts of different things of why there could be a backlog of inventory. And there could be reasons why or why not they're buying. So just remember what the consumer insight is. think about all the different things that are happening in market. Think about all the things that are happening with your staff and your customers for why there could be a backlog of, in this case, inventory. Next question. So what are the key points then, if we are going to go out into market and really push this one make? We said the Toyota Corolla, we have too many of them. So if we're going to take that vehicle and we're going to go out into market and really try to reduce the amount of overage in our inventory, what are the key points then that need to be communicated to a consumer? What do you think, so based on that question, what do you think are the most compelling parts of that offer or that ad? It's important to know that you need to really dial into not just what's great about the vehicle and the product itself, but you have to think about the last question and going, what's happening in market that will help people engage with us a little more? Is it something about the payment specifically or not the payment? Is it something else that can be offered with the vehicle based on seasonality? What are the different things that can be compelling to a user, but also based on just a little bit more of a look at the consumer at your dealership itself? When you're looking at the dealership itself, what are you seeing from your own customers, the different kinds of customers and the different ways they do business and buy from your dealership? So when you're looking at that, there could be different key points to different advertising, even though you're just trying to move inventory of one type of vehicle. You may have 3 or 4 different types of buyer persona at your dealership. And a buyer persona, again, is you may have like a Toyota Corolla owner, maybe 60 years old plus, retired, just likes a reliable car, likes to do all their business in the dealership, likes to pay cash. That's one persona. You may have a 25-year-old persona that buys the Toyota Corolla because it is affordable. They like to lease it because they can manage their budget. It's good on gas. They like the technology in it. So you've got a 25-year-old persona, you got a 60-year-old persona, and then maybe you have a young family. They buy it because the size of the car is right for 3 or 4 people. It's very safe. Again, they will either lease or finance it. They like the reliability of the vehicle because of using their family. So as you think about all the different kinds of people, you may actually think about different subsets of key points that need to be communicated to each of those different personas based on what's compelling to them. So this is where a brief really starts to extend itself and really busts out, because you can look at lots of different ways different people do business at your dealership and start to tailor and think about, it may not be one message, it may be one look and feel to a campaign or a marketing strategy that goes out into your market, but it may actually look and feel a few different ways based on the different kinds of people that buy it. And you can put all of those out for the one strategy, because again, it's going to speak to people differently, and it's good to test and see which ones may do better than the others. So again, what do you think the most compelling parts of that offer are based on these personas? This question is really about thinking about the things like giving people what they want, because too often as well in our rush to go to market, we will take what the manufacturer is giving us. So Toyota will say, this is what we say about the car. And sometimes it's just easy to take that information and move that into marketing, right? We can take it, we can push it into our marketing in a way that doesn't necessarily bring a lot of value, again, to the different kinds of buyers that are unique to your store. They are a big brand. They are looking at one brand and one sort of message. So don't get too caught up in stock messaging from your manufacturer. Give the people what they want. I'm going to take a little water break. They may or may not edit that out. All right. I want to jump ahead. The next one is, what channels and tactics will we use to communicate the message? Pretty simple. what I mean by that is, depending on what comes out of brainstorming, you're going to have sometimes very specific channels and mediums of where this advertising, this content, this strategy is going to play. It might be an email campaign. It may just be a series of email campaigns that go to existing customers, right? So that what channels and tactics we are going to use dedicated, personalized email campaigns to our existing database. Lots of variables in there. So we have their first name and last name, a lot of personalized information. That's a channel, right? Very personalized email campaigns, very targeted email campaigns to our own people. It may be a social media campaign where you put some materials out into Facebook or on Facebook Marketplace to see if you can move some of this inventory. Some of the tactics may be in the channel. So you're using Facebook. The tactic may be, I'm going to drop pins, geo pins, in my advertising campaigns on certain sections of my, my market area, like where most of my customers live and do business. I'm going to set geo targets around specific areas in order to do this campaign. That's a channel and a tactic. I may just do billboard advertising or what's called, out of home advertising. Billboards and signage around certain cities, around certain neighborhoods, maybe near certain business parks where people are, based on your types of customers, they may see that. There's lots of different channels and tactics and ways to do it. So a channel, if you did something out of home, you may do something big and bold that stands out with limited messaging, but big thought, if that makes any sense. It's simply a matter of, as you're thinking about what's in your head about what you need, what channels and tactics, this is just a good place to go. Could be an email campaign, a personalized email campaign to our customers, could be an email campaign to prospective customers and abandoned leads we had from last month. It could be a social media promoted post. We could get into LinkedIn and target different professions, different company names. There's lots of different things. So don't limit your thinking when you're building the brief here on what channels and tactics. Just put as many that make sense for you in the initial thinking, because once you move into brainstorming, you'll tighten that up. But this is just a good thing to go, well, you could put this campaign in lots of different areas and it could be effective. Brainstorming will lock it down to what could be the most effective way. We'll get to that. I've got 2 questions left on this before I show you what my template document looks like. But what are the goals of the project? So we know what the problem is. We said the problem was we just have too much inventory, right? Way too much inventory, and we need to whittle that down. So the goals of the project will be that we want to try to sell 20 of these vehicles. Maybe that's what our overage is. So if we've defined a granular problem of where we have too much inventory, this is just simply like, pick a number. How many of them do you want to sell for this exercise, right? So let's say 20. We want to sell 20 of these overages in our inventory, 20 Toyota Corolla. Clear goals, our sales numbers. These can be very, very clear. So for this exercise, right, for the problem of the overages, this is a sales number, right? So the clear goal is a sales number. If you are developing a video to talk about your new ways of doing business, touchless ways of doing business, if the quote is about the development of a piece of video content, or maybe the briefing is about getting the marketing team to put on a private sales event or a big sales event, regardless of what the document is, at the goals part, it's simply just assigning based on the problem. I need to build a video. My goals will be video views. If it's we need to have a sales event, we haven't had one in a long time, the goal probably would be how many people ended up attending the event. Simple goals, just again, Toyota Corollas, we have too many. I want to sell 20. That's it. And then after that, how will we measure success? And it seems like in a way, a duplication of the last question, because we've said, well, I want to sell 20, but how will we measure that? It's important to make sure that everyone has a clear idea of what data and what system is going to help us ensure that we all are looking at the same thing. It's more for that. So the question, so we said, if we want to sell 20 vehicles, how are we going to, what are the areas we're going to look? Well, we have a whiteboard, like a lo-fi erasable marker whiteboard, where we've got, we've got those listed, we've got the VIN numbers listed, we've got the salespeople who sold what, and that's our old school visual way of looking at that. But we could also go into the CRM against the VINs of those vehicles, and that's another way of looking at, okay, did we hit our mark? Did we sell 20? Did we sell 18? Because we can go look in different systems at the dealership very quickly and go see how many of those we've sold. And it's good to have that, because then you've got your, you've got your way of looking at things. It could be like if you are simply producing a video and releasing it on YouTube and the different social channels, you'll want those social analytics back of how many views, right? Because your goal may be, I would love to have 2,000 views of my new video in a span of 30 days. So if you get those views, it's a simple exercise of going, we are going to go into YouTube and look at their analytics. We'll pull Facebook analytics. We'll pull our views from LinkedIn. Wherever you're dropping this video, it's just a matter of identifying where you can pull the necessary views, number of views, like, minutes viewed, things like that. So that just that core information, depending on each campaign, is going to be different. Like, how will you measure success if it's a live event? Again, it's going to be a mixture of CRM, RSVPs, head counts at the actual event, right? Because you're going to have people RSVP and maybe 20% of those people may not show up. So there's going to be different areas, right? If it's landing pages on your website, you may look at Google Analytics or different things to measure that input leads into your CRM. There's lots of ways to measure this, but you have a goal, and you have to make sure you're very clear about the exact places you're going to pull from in order to get your success measurements. So that is your brief in a nutshell. And what I like about that is I gave you 6 questions to formulate what's in your head when you have an idea for something you want to do in market. So that's the simplicity of the brief. 6 questions, and I hope that as I was going through them, you were writing them down. Make it a Google Doc or just make it a Word doc. Make it, I highly recommend a Google Doc because it's shareable. It sits up in the cloud. It can be edited and tracked. So if people are making different edits to it, that's something you want to, I would prefer that over like a Microsoft Word document that may not be on unless you're using Microsoft Teams. Always build something that can be collaborated with easily and accessed by your team if people are, like right now, working remote. Okay, let me do that. Okay, we've got the brief down. So the next thing we want to go into is we want to go into a brainstorm. Brainstorms are super fun. And establishing this process for coming up with ideas for the business is the best way, if not the most reliable way, to just never run out of ideas. It gets your team always thinking about different things and looking at their markets and looking at what the customer's doing, looking at the ins and outs of the business every month and coming up with things going, hey, here's something I've been seeing about the parts department. Maybe there's an idea here that we can roll out. I've seen something in our used car buyers. Maybe if we did this. But by going through this process of writing a brief and then scheduling a brainstorm session, the more often you do these as you create briefs for different needs inside the dealership and outside in market, the more you do it, you should always have a brainstorm session. Brainstorm sessions are only 30 minutes long, 45 minutes if it's a stretch. You keep them really short, but again, it starts to get people thinking creatively and not just thinking about the obvious. It achieves a bunch of things. First, it does really allow your whole team that you invite to the brainstorm, whoever you are inviting to the brainstorm, it allows them to really consider what your audience wants of you. It really allows you to think about all those different buyers I talked about in the persona. It helps get the creative gears turning in your head. It helps produce ideas that you may not otherwise thought you had, and people that are at the brainstorm. It just having a group of people around a table in a relaxed environment, coming up with great ideas, good or bad, it doesn't matter what they are. It's just still, it's more than one person could do on their own. So with the brainstorm, I'm going to give you the 3 steps on how to set it up. But you're going to open up the brainstorm 2 ways. As you schedule the brainstorm for everyone, let's say we're recording this on a Friday. Let's say I'm going to request some people to meet with me for 45 minutes, 30 minutes to 45 minutes on Tuesday of next week. I'm going to set that in their calendars, and I'm going to send them my brief to read. Here's my brief. This is my idea. This is what I want to take into this brainstorm. At the day of the brainstorm, at the start of the brainstorm, really quickly, you're going to take your people through it again quickly and make sure everyone's on the same page. You're going to get the stakeholders at the table to agree on the brief. Does everyone understand it? Does this make sense? Also allows people to come to the brainstorm saying, hey, here's an insight in your insight section of your brief that we should also add to the brief about something a customer said last week. It's a quick startup before the brainstorm to just go, hey, is there anything we need to add to the brief, take away from it? Does anyone understand? Does everyone understand it? Does anyone have any questions? Once you do that, you always have that on record as the day that everyone agreed to the vision of what you're going to do in market. And the reason why you have everyone agree to the brief is what will happen somewhere in the execution of this great idea for this overage in inventory, near the halfway mark, the 3/4 mark before you're finished the project, before you reached your goals, someone's going to question the tactics again. Like, didn't we say we were going to, put this up into social media, or didn't we say we were going to do billboards? You're going to question something about the idea and the way it's rolling out. This is why you have everyone agree to the brief, because the brief will solidify what the vision was and what could be the different tactics, right? So again, the brief is always there to bring people back to the onus of the idea and not allow the idea to sort of get too big or too wide. That's what we call in the advertising business, it's called scope creep. So we have a scope of a project that we think we've got a really good handle on, we've got a vision for it, but then somewhere during the project, while it's active, after brainstorming's happened and after people are trying to get it executed for market, people start rethinking it and people start adding or subtracting things from it. But what happens with that is it adds time and budget to it. And sometimes it ruins the initial idea that was solid, and it doesn't have the same delivery or it hits the same goals as were originally set, not immediately, but originally sent out. So something to think about. That's why you want to, before the brainstorm, have everyone review the brief, quickly review it at the start of the brainstorm. So after the brief has been read, you have 3 stages of a brainstorm. So like I said, 30 minutes or 45 minutes, no more than 45 minutes. So if we take this in a 30-minute window, the first 10 minutes, the very first 10 minutes are strictly for brainstorming. Blitz this out. Everyone has paper or Post-it notes. I love these, like handy little Post-it notes. You just give everyone a stack of Post-it notes and they write down as many ideas as they can in 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes tops. And don't worry about whether they're good or bad. Don't think about them, just whatever in your head, write them down, get them on paper. It's a good way to simplify your thoughts, get them out of your head, get them down onto paper, because there's some that could come up that you didn't think about originally. And you're gonna have time to sort this out. But for 15 minutes tops, take your Post-it notes, write down as many ideas as you can, and have those people pile them up in front of them. That's the first section of the brainstorm. Super, super easy. Now, the minute everyone's done that, the 10 minutes or the 15 minutes are up, you are then going to hand the meeting coordinator. So if I'm the meeting coordinator, I'm going to take everyone's ideas and make one big pile, right? So I've got my big pile of all my Post-it notes, and I'm going to go around the table and I'm going to read each one, and I'm going to put them down in 3 piles. 3 piles. So I'm going to read each idea out to the group, and then we're going to kind of just loosely assess as a group, if the idea is an okay idea, so-so. Is it a good idea? Like, it's got potential. Or is it a great idea? Like, that's a winning idea. So again, it's not to overthink this. It's just to really quickly, over 10 or 15 minutes, go through every idea in the pile and quickly assign them to one of the three piles. It's almost like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? Not great, good, perfect. And it's not, I know it's not the Three Bears thing, but we'll get there. Again, three piles though. And you can read the room as you're like reading out an idea. Like someone say, like, let's rent a hot air balloon and paint a Toyota Corolla on it. That's like a kind of a so-so idea. I'm going to put that there. But someone may say, let's have a lease pull ahead event. Let's mine our own database, find our current Corolla drivers that are almost up in their lease and try to pull them ahead at a special event with a special rate. That's a really great idea. So you'd put that one in the great pile. Over 10 or 15 minutes, you should have three piles of ideas: your so-so ideas, your good ideas, and your great ideas. And that's where you want to end up. Just get them into a pile. The last piece of this then is you take the so-so ideas and the good ideas and you move them over to the side, and you're left with your great ideas, your pile of great ideas. And then for 10 or 15 minutes again, like I said, these are very defined, carved out time. Like it's kind of fun with this too, because I like doing my brainstorms this way. And I start the stopwatch on my smartphone and I sort of call out where we are, like 6 minutes left, 3 minutes left, 1 minute left. So I go through this set process. And the last process is I take all the great ideas, the ones we've deemed for the really great pile. And let's say there's 5. Let's say we've got 5 in the great pile out of everyone's work. We put all 5 down on the table, sit middle of the table, and then we number them, right? So we have 5, we number them 1 through 5. Each person around the table gets to vote for one of the 5 ideas, right? There's 5 great ideas on the table. Each person at the table gets to vote for one. Silent vote, they just write their number down, fold it up, hand it to me, the meeting organizer. I then will read out each person's vote and assign a check mark on each post-it. The reason why I do this is because I hope that at the end of the exercise is that I have a majority on one of those 5 ideas. So maybe one of them just has a few more votes than everything else. That is our go-to idea. And the great thing about this is even though we're only pulling one out and they're all great ideas, you're going to keep the rest. You're not going to roll them out right now, but this gives you a head start next time if you have to. Once you've gone through this exercise of trying to sell this extra inventory, you've got a few more great ideas that you can roll out the next campaign based on one of those ideas, because you already have a brief for it. So you can reuse a brief based on a need. So this is first out of the gate, first great idea to help us move this inventory. So you've got your one idea. That's the exercise of the brainstorm. And like I said, it's 30 or 40 minutes of your time. That is it, okay? That's a brainstorm. It's awesome. That's all we have to do there. So again, if you're following along, you've written down those 6 questions, and I'll make sure that the show has everything, those questions in the decks for you, so you can write these down. But again, the brainstorm is up to you, and it's just a lot of fun. 30 minutes, like I do 30, do 45 if you can do it, but I think you'll get a ton of value out of just having some fun kicking around ideas. And you're always going to have a backlog of some really strong ones as well. This is why we need to do this, again, because too often we put people on the spot with not a lot of time and say, come up with something great. Here we go. All right, so roles and responsibilities. Now that the brainstorm is done, at that brainstorm, you should, and maybe I should have mentioned that at the brainstorm, but this is a new car strategy just to get inventory off the lot. At that brainstorm, you should have your sales managers, some of your salespeople, general manager, maybe your finance managers, different people at the dealership that have a vested interest in that part of the dealership's work and what has to go out. You have some marketing people there. Maybe you have maybe you even have your the external, if you're using an external marketing agency or external marketing people, bring them in, invite them in too, so they can put ideas out there as well. so we can take it all in. Then what's going to happen is you're going to take that great idea, and if you have an internal or an external marketing team that was at the brainstorm, and again, they should be at the brainstorm, they shouldn't be omitted, they are then given ownership of executing the idea. So roles and responsibilities, first off, are just giving that delegation to the marketing arm, right? The marketing arm needs to go in and take this over. However, delegating tasks on skill and experience, because if it's internal, like a lot of us do, we have limited access to marketing people, and we have a few people internally. Maybe we have a couple of designers or copy people that work outside of the dealership that come in and do things freelance or piece by piece. You need to give everybody part of this exercise to make sure that, you know, what the idea is it's a video campaign with a, you know, dedicated email. You'll need someone to write the copy, you know, write what do we want to write about based on all this work we did. You know, maybe there's a video that needs to be shot. Do we have to go outside? You know, who's going to go outside and find a videographer or a camera crew to shoot this? There's different people at the table that need to be responsible for certain things. Now, if you are using marketers, you can hand most of this thinking to them and have them figure it all out for you. But if you're working as a team with limited resources and you have to use a little bit of everybody at the dealership, everyone gets a little bit of something that they can bring to the table, because maybe you have a sales manager who's really good at writing emails. They've got a great way with words. You know, when they write stuff, when they send things to customers, they always get great responses and quick responses. So maybe that person helps write the campaign copy for this entire objective. Maybe you have someone, you know, maybe there's someone in the parts department who's really good with shooting video for the things they do in their parts department, but we're going to do this, but maybe we take them to help us shoot some, you know, some vehicle walkarounds. Maybe they help us do some shooting, while a salesperson, some of the better salespeople who are good in front of the camera, can come out and talk about the event, the sales event you're having for this inventory you want to move. It's just about thinking about the right people for the right spot. And again, if you are in a great position where you can hand this over to a marketing agency that's external or internal at your group, and they can take on most of it, and it's just a matter of you sort of reviewing their work and their creative approach, that's great. But there are a lot of us out there that have to do a lot of little things ourselves, and that's okay, because you'd be surprised how much talent you'll find inside the walls of your own dealership. With this, though, I just want to stress that when you pick someone to do something, you know, you're going to write some copy, you're going to take some pictures, you're going to help us build an email list, whatever the exercise is, you're going to shoot video of the cars, just make sure that they have the skills needed to tackle the task, and that they're given, that they can help give an accurate estimate of time. Because it's one thing to brainstorm it, start to define who's going to do what to get it to market, but everyone, as they're defined their role, also needs to come back with an amount of time it's going to take them from an estimate standpoint. How much time do they think they're going to need to get that done? What's a reasonable amount of time that it's going to take them to move through the exercise of either writing copy, shooting a video? How much time are they going to need when it comes to their work? Do they need to get it done? Because you need to take all that time and then encapsulate it into what I call a work back schedule, to say, from start to finish, if we begin this project tomorrow, we are going to need, you know, 2 weeks of total time to have this ready for market, right? We want to think about a window of time and put a deadline on when we need to be in market. Because if we don't do that, if we don't assign time with the role and assess time for the roles that are given, people will just take on jobs and they won't really be managing when they get that back to you, because we all get busy at a dealership. So if we're using an internal team at the store to help us get something out the door, we also have to remember that they have other things during their day that they have to do. And the marketing project may get pushed back and they may not do it. But if they say, I'm going to need 3 days to shoot video, you can then take that information and go, okay, I'm going to give you next Thursday to the following Monday, 3 business days to shoot that video, but I need all video from you by date X. that way you're giving them a hard deadline. Give them the information they need, give them, return to them based on their time estimations, a schedule of events. It's just not the exercise of handing out the responsibility. Everyone that's involved with this project has to be accountable to the deadlines. That's a killer. And it happens on both sides, the dealer side and the vendor side. We all have great ideas we want to roll out in the market. Sometimes they happen right away. Most of the time they don't, because we don't assign deadlines to the work. Okay. So as these go out, provide thorough direction and context. Prepare the people, right? Like, so like we said, we have our brief, we have the brainstorm. Based on that, now you just need to make sure that they have all the right instructions and documents they may need to do the job that they have. You know, maybe for, you know, for the video people, they can't do the job they have until they have a script for the salesperson to talk to in front of the car. Maybe you're going to put a salesperson in front of the car. They're going to need something to read or bullet points to sort of touch on while they speak to the car. If they don't have that, if someone else is responsible for writing that, it's the responsibility of the, you know, the owner of the project to make sure that they have a script, that they, if there's maybe a piece of equipment that, you know, the parts guy who's going to shoot the video for the dealer needs, like maybe you just need to order on Amazon like a windsock for a microphone or something to help you do that. It's, you know, $45. Like, you got to make sure he's got the equipment he needs. Again, you can build up your own, you know, little marketing equipment, you know, closet with a lot of great things that don't cost a lot of money, but that's making sure they have everything they need. If you're having someone write copy about that vehicle, make sure that you've given them all of the documents from the manufacturer, all of the brochures and any new information on that vehicle from, you know, consumer websites and the manufacturer that can help them really find the gold that they want to talk about the vehicle. Or if that's being written into an email or into some kind of invite, they still need all that information. So that's what I mean by when you assign people roles and responsibilities, make sure you look at each role and figure out and talk to them about what they may need. Some of it's very obvious, but sometimes too, if someone's writing copy, you may have to make sure that they have the most up-to-date state or provincial legal, federal laws. Like, if anything has to be written into the deal, anything that has to be written into the communication for legal purposes or compliance purposes too. It's like, it's just making sure that as you're making, you know, as you're helping everyone get their tasks done, you're making sure they're armed with everything they need to be successful. This is a big one in the, as everyone moves out and starts working on the project. It's about fostering personal responsibility and ownership. And there's a great write-up on this I was talking about earlier in our recording, but it's from HubSpot. HubSpot's a great resource for all kinds of just planning and management information, as I'm talking to you now too. But they've written this, and it's from an old white paper of theirs, and it's still on their website. It's not enough to assign a task to a team member. You need to give people full authority over the work so they feel engaged to complete it successfully. You also have to make sure that when you transfer a task, the assigned person is taking complete responsibility of it. Like that's big, right? Because that builds that culture of accountability. And it starts with having all of the stakeholders and members of who are going to be on that team to get this to market. They have to be in the objective setting meetings, right? When we are looking at what we have to do after brainstorm, they have to understand that. And what I mean by fostering this culture of accountability, fostering personal responsibility and ownership is, sometimes we get too busy at our jobs, and we use that. There's busy days at the dealership, and there's not busy days at the dealership. And they're not all busy, because I've done tons and years of data looking at how much downtime people have between customers at dealerships. Talked about this to the dealers that were in Las Vegas. There are times where there's 5 whole hours where we're not in front of a customer. So people are busy, but there's a lot of times where there's downtime. However, when these projects come out, and like I said, ideas can be fantastic, but the execution stinks and nothing gets done. Happens on the vendor side, happens on the dealer side. But what happens at the dealer side is people go, I'm too busy right now to help you do that. So the person who's quarterbacking this, so again, this really goes more to if your dealership is doing this in-house. Sometimes the person that gets the responsibility of making sure the project's being managed, the project gets out, as more people start telling them that they can't do it, they don't have enough time, they start to push it off for other things they have to do, the person who's delegating and driving and managing the whole project starts to do their jobs for them as well. And while sometimes it has to happen, it's just a matter of like someone could leave, like someone on your team could maybe take a different job somewhere else and leave the dealership. You have to kind of pick up their, their roles and responsibilities. However, if people are there and they're just sort of shirking their responsibilities, it's very easy for us to micromanage the project and start to take it on and go, I'll just do it myself. I'll get it done faster. Every time you do that, you take more pieces away from the accountability of the entire operation. You start allowing people not to be accountable for things anymore, and you allow people to shirk responsibility. And it's a big statement to say, and it's like, well, it's not that major, but it is. It is the minute you start doing things the minute you start doing too many things for people, you will start to chip away at like this real bedrock of accountability, and no one will do anything, and it'll be left to the odd few people to get everything done. And those people over time will sour and they'll leave, and you'll be in this turnover cycle all the time that dealerships are trying to find the right people to do the right jobs, because more and more there's just culture things and accountability things that don't happen in the stores, and it creates more turnover. So if you're constantly turning over people, it really does affect marketing you want to do. It affects assessments of technology that you want to bring in. Like, it really does affect everything, because you don't really get to a project execution one way or the other to 100%. So this is why it's very important to foster personal responsibility and ownership. Finally, when you're done this, when you've done your brief, you've done your brainstorm, everyone has their roles and responsibility. The team's gone out, the marketing's gone out, the events happen, the software's been assessed, whatever the project's done. But this one was like, we had all the sales, we brought people in, we sold 17 cars. Like, we almost actually hit our goal. We did really, really well. At the very end of the process with roles and responsibilities, the third step in the building blocks, you want to set aside time after the project window is over. So maybe this was a 60-day window from start of building it to the end of the sales window. Based on how you measure it, what are the goals? We want to sell X amount of cars by this date. Here's our end date. Right after it's done, while it's still fresh, sit everyone down and set aside time for feedback and gratitude. Make sure your team knows how appreciative you are of all of their efforts. Celebrate what you did. Even if you got close to the goal, it's still something to celebrate, because doing it this way, it's going to be your first foray out of the gate by taking a different approach to doing your planning and thinking about it. And again, this is very analog. This is not digital. This isn't about how can we do this on our smartphones with each other and not see each other in person. This entire exercise about building the building blocks of marketing success is all about working together as much as you can face to face. And I know right now it's challenging for all of us because we have to do it this way with Zoom. But it's doing it this way or doing it in person once we get past all of this. These are kind of what I call the pillars of doing good business. It's not new. It's not new thinking. It's not advanced thinking. It's quite simply making sure that everyone, from the first person with the idea in their head or seeing a problem that we have to solve, to the last person who maybe pushes the button so the ad goes up on Facebook and it's live. Everything about that, to the people that are selling it or trying to fulfill on the campaign, or like I said, look at a new way of hiring people or a different process or whatever you're using these 3 steps for. This is just a good way at the end of it all to look at it as a group and make sure that you're keeping this in line with everything you do. It's almost too simple in its execution. But the interesting thing about it is, every time I bring dealers through this, every time I make them go through the brief, and it's painful watching you guys fill this out. I've made dealers do this while we were all on vacation in Jamaica at a resort. They didn't like doing it, but you know, the dealers that did it, I talked to more dealers the next day. It was like a keynote I did, and I made them fill out their brief. I gave them a strategic brief. They filled it out. I walked them through these other parts of the process. And the next day I talked to a lot of them because they had questions about, you know, when I do this, you know, what's a timing window? Like they just had a ton of questions. And to this day, I still have dealers, every time I bring all of you through something like this, they come back to me and they say, we still use a strategic brief for everything we meet on. We build it, if it's like, because you could build a strategic brief too for what is your brand promise as a dealership? What is your business saying to the consumer? That's also a brief. Like, what problem are we solving? What do we want to say? And if you build documents like that about your vision for your business, they're good things to bring out at different staff meetings too, because it reminds us all that we as a group sat down with something and planned something together and put our heads together to build great things in the market. So your time spent with me, this hour that you've spent with me, that's what this is all about. This is just about 3 simple steps, doing this weird, lo-fi, not digital work, but it's going to give you better results moving out because you're taking account of all of the little facets of a campaign or a strategy that needs to go out instead of just throwing it on someone's desk and hoping it gets done. Because when that happens, most of the time it doesn't. It, you know, one way or the other, something will get out in the market, but it will never deliver like it could if you as a group inside your dealership work together and get it out together as a team and fulfill it together. It's much more rewarding. So, like I said, the lesson is 3 steps. And I hope you can take it. I hope you can build with it and do good things with it. Please try to employ it with your teams. Try to use it in a couple of different ways so you can assess things together, look at things together, and come up with great ideas together, okay? So thanks again for like sitting through this. Thanks for like being a part of this thinking. I know we may do some Q&A and some different things with this. And whatever you need from me, I'll be around to online or otherwise to help you, you know, wade through this, because your dealership briefs may look a little bit different than the next person's. Your way of doing your brainstorms may be a little bit different, but if you just keep to the 3 steps of briefing, brainstorm, roles and responsibilities, you should find much more success than you had in the past, especially now when there's so much more for us to figure out. Okay, great. That's it from me.